Hey everyone, this is Will from China, and welcome to this brand new and exciting episode of The Missing Piece. After becoming a father, I gradually have a lot more appreciation towards the word family. I realized as soon as my wife and we find out that we are going to get a baby girl, my wife and I were so excited. And as the first time, we were learning how to become a better parents. Until last year, my daughter was born, and every day has become more valuable and precious. As a Christian believer, I always say God created each one of us on purpose. Even though in the US Constitution, it says that all men were created equal. However, if we look at American society today, the liberals or even the leftists, they're trying to change this political agenda, or even they're trying to use the word brainwash the minds of the younger generations. For example, before this whole election took place, the current president, acknowledged that life was supposed to be appreciated or supposed to be valued by everyone. However, so far, we have not seen any firm confirmation, or we have not heard any strong declaration regarding human life. In this episode, I had a very special guest. He was born and raised in America, and he used to be part of this liberal group. However, gradually he realized these liberal agendas are actually distorting the value of family, especially regarding human life. Gradually, he changed. He shifted to another side of the aisles. He became a conservative or even a most outspoken person in the education service. I was able to invite this expert join our show to share with me and clearly answered 3 questions. The first question is, what happened to the younger generations today? Why are they so passionate, or why are they so even confused about human life or even value of human beings? And the second, as an educator, what prompted him to share such a strong and a powerful and a passionate message on social media? Last but not least, what about social media? How does social media today influence us, especially the children, regarding some of the critical or even the most important concept within American society today? Again, I think these issues that we must address on the show. It's not just about politics. It's really about the word morality. And also, why should we send our kids to universities or colleges today if they're not learning what's appropriate, or if they're not being educated what's right and what's wrong?
Thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the question. Again, when I discovered you on social media, because you posted such a very inspiring and a passionate speech from your perspective, it's so critical and so urgent to share that at this moment.
So actually, when Speaker Pelosi was asked by the reporter what her definition of the beginning of life was, and if a baby at 15 weeks was considered alive, that was actually a friend of mine, a colleague that I'd worked with and written with at Lone Conservative, by the name of Julia Johnson, very talented reporter. And she asked that question very specifically because if you ask a foundational question, you can get clarity on whether we can agree on the foundations and then build up. We do this with all sorts of things throughout society. This is how you build a foundational system. That's what that means. And of course, Pelosi dodged the question. And then, of course, later, one of Julia's colleagues asked the same question to President Biden's press secretary, and the same thing happened. And the exact same kind of dodge was given. And I was a little steamed. I of course, run the Chalkboard Reviews podcast, The Teacher's Lounge. I do a lot of video stuff here, hence the setting. And I was sitting at my desk and I thought, you know what, as a science teacher, as a biology teacher, I'm sick of people dodging this question because it's not a difficult question. It's not even something that's vague. It's not a gray area. It's not something that scientists have been debating for years. We know exactly when it begins. So I made the video, honestly, partly just because I was tired of people dodging one of the easiest questions to field from a scientific perspective. People need to watch it because they need to know the answer, just as you need to know what mitosis is, just as you need to understand the difference between something that's prokaryotic and eukaryotic. It's a basic scientific fact.
Well, Tony, but from your perspective, when you posted that video, again, I have to watch it several times before actually understanding the drive or the point from your video. But the second question is, why do you think the administration today, or even the liberals, they're actually trying to avoid answering the question? Because you think that they are so afraid that the public are going to disagree that the answers that they might give? Or is it because this is the agenda they're trying to promote since administration took over?
I think it's a little of both. So the problem with leftists and liberals in dealing with the pro-choice issue is that they can't unify on an actual point of contention. Because as soon as you unify on a point of contention as to when life begins, you can make illegal anything past when that point of life begins, causing harm to that life. So even if you made the decision, okay, at 6 months, at 7 months, it's a baby, that would by nature outlaw late-term abortions. And again, that's why a lot of Democrat, liberal, leftists, depending on your label and definition, make such a concerted effort to avoid answering that question. They can't answer the question. They can't even answer it in a much more liberal way than the scientific answer suggests, because as soon as you do, you necessitate a law being made. And of course, their entire premise that they're standing on is that no matter what it is, it's a woman's right to do whatever she wants to the child, which is a very strange case to say, but they refuse to be pinned down, because if they are, it reveals exactly what they believe, which is nothing, strangely enough.
Well, Tony, it's so interesting that you're right, because if you listen to the soundbite, or if you really actually pay attention to what they're saying, is they kept on using the word "it's women's right." They were saying "my body, my choice." But I mean, it sounds ridiculous. They're actually doing that to show the respect to the women, but actually without understanding what they're saying, don't you think? And also,
well, it's really quite a baseline comment. It's a common thing in politics to, when someone asks you a difficult question, just to say that you support the policy in general. So both the left and the right are guilty of this in education. Someone will ask something really difficult about education, and their response is, "Oh, well, I support education. I support teachers. I support parents." And it's very easy, as soon as you get a difficult question, just to say, "Oh, I support this broad line general policy that sounds really good." And that's really all you need to know. And so, I mean, this is a really old trick. It's just being applied to pro-life and pro-choice issues, because that's where the current difficult question for them to answer is.
That's right, Tony. But again, let's shift the gear to the younger generations. And we know that today, politically speaking, the younger generations today in America are so vibrant, and they are causing, how can I say, this political entire shift. Even not only since the election in 2016, but even before that. And especially today, they seem to agree with a lot of things, and what I call is blind spot. And I don't think they understand what they are actually supporting. So again, because they, you know, Tony, the better way to put it is they idolize certain figure, so they will more likely to buy into the concept that this idols or this figures are actually promoting, but without actually doing research or without even digging deeper on some of the critical issues. Tony, you're an educator, and you've been teaching different courses, and you're interested in, especially from a scientific perspective. Now, I want you to talk with us a little bit is how how dangerous and how threatening this is continue for the younger generations to behave this way.
Well, first of all, it's important to note where this originates from. So a lot of this comes from social media and internet use. And I'm not trying to be the old fogey trying to scare everyone away from, tech use, coming from the guy with 4 monitors in front of him and a smartphone glued to his hip. But it's important to note that in the modern social framework, children are isolated, and they're isolated whenever they feel any kind of social discomfort. Many children, whenever they start to feel as though they're in a place in which they don't have anything in common with people around them, they'll run online to groups that will welcome them in. So we actually saw this as a very interesting study done on why the neo-Nazi movement appeals to so many people that are struggling with anxiety and depression. And it's because they're just a group, a horrible, horrible group that welcomes anyone in. And then it's like a cult. They foster them, they welcome them, they give them all this love and care and validation. And then as soon as you're in this group, you feel the need, because they've given you that love and affirmation, to parrot anything that they say. And anything that they say you take as truth at face value. You don't do any research. Suddenly, any research that starts to look a little like it would contest that view, you like holistically reject. And we see this on the right, on the left, in the north and the south, authoritative libertarian. No matter what group you're in, that's the issue. The problem right now is that you have a lot of large left-leaning groups, particularly thinking of the social media company Snapchat, who sponsors all of these extremely radical, socially speaking groups to come out and print these very sexual-based articles towards minors. And of course, that it's painted as affirmation. It's really grooming. It's really sick and disgusting. But this priming of sexual affirmation for a lot of the youth that we see, really starting around late elementary, early junior high, is sucking all of Generation Z and I Alpha following them into this kind of cult-like religious puritanical following of the left. And so that's why, especially in issues of pro-choice, people don't actually want to sit down and have a discussion about when that point of life begins, because you're not actually assaulting the stance at which they currently believe the situation. You're assaulting their religion. You're assaulting their livelihood. You're assaulting the group that loves them and gives them comfort and strength and colors their hair the same way and all use the exact same inside jokes and hates the same people. And it's something that's not new. It's pretty much as old as the internet.
Well, Tony, since you mentioned social media, I want to share with you something I just found out this morning. Now, take this. I know you're on social media, or you, of course, I mean, we're all on social media today. And one of the
unfortunately.
Well, yes, unfortunately, I agree with you. But one of the popular apps today is called TikTok. So actually, this morning, I read an article that a TikTok today, it's actually offering sex education content on TikTok. And there are more than 300 million followers worldwide to tune in this content. Again, believe me, Tony, I am a father of a daughter who's only 9 months old. And right now I am getting worried about the exposure of social media continue to down the drain. Now, with that said, I don't think I'm going to pinpoint this matter to younger generations, but I want to shift attention to the parents.
That's where I would go.
So Tony, let's talk about this a little bit. So again, combined with what you shared on social media initially, and also with this political liberal agenda, why don't you think that the parents today, they are in this what we called a stone cold, or even this how can I say this, in a stubbornness, refuse to educate their children, refuse to have the conversation fairly and nicely, and even to be truthfully with the kids regarding everything going on, especially the left liberal agenda trying to change the value of human life?
So I want to be clear. I think it's less about refusal and stubbornness to have the conversations, and it's much more about laziness. And here's why. So starting with the baby boomers, they inherited a society post-World War II in which basically everything was great. And the greatest generation had come back from the war and were upholding all of these societal norms. They were engaging with civil rights. They were reforming the country to be a much better place. And they're doing all of the work. So the baby boomers come in and, by and large, according to data that we have, basically did a whole lot of nothing. They sort of upheld some of the moral traditions and the social traditions. They really didn't know why. The factory model of education is just pumping out new people. So they're just kind of going along with it. And they raised Generation X in front of, for the very first time, the television. The baby boomers set Generation X in front of the television. The television raises Generation X. And Generation X, by and large, doesn't really pay attention to a whole lot of the way that this country works, why its people are valuable, why we should be having tough conversations with our children, etc. It was socially unacceptable to have deep conversations because eventually you would figure it out on your own, and the country was good enough that it would make up for your flaws and errors. Then you get to the millennials. Then Generation X starts raising the millennials, and they raise them directly in front of the TV all the time.
That's right.
Always, from birth. And now there's children's program on the TV. It's basically teaching my kid enough, and I can, give them a look to make sure they're not doing anything really crazy in public, and they basically raise themselves. Now we're seeing millennials raising Generation Z and I Alpha.
Oh, wow.
And shocker, you're getting this compounding effect because really children haven't been raised properly as a whole in the United States for 2 or 3 generations now. No one's cared. It's been lazy. Everything's been hand fed to you. Panem et circuses. They've had entertainment and food. So why would I bother raising my kid? They'll turn out okay enough. And that's really the issue. So I don't think it's parents refusing to have conversations with their kids. They just don't care. They don't have to. I mean, yeah, TikTok will do it for them. I don't really understand it. I give them a phone, I give them a tablet, and the, screen addiction takes care of it from there. And my kid never cries or whines or is upset. They simply watch YouTube videos and then hop on TikTok and surf through whatever trend is put in front of their face.
What do you think? I simply enjoy the conversation between me and Tony. I wish I had more time to dig something deeper on these critical matters. What really struck me the most from talking to Tony, it's not just about his conservative or his view on human value or life value. It's more about how we're supposed to be a better guidance or better parents towards our children regarding this critical and significant topics. If you listen carefully or if you pay attention, you realize that Tony mentions it's not about education. We can't say today in American society or worldwide, parents are not being educated. Actually, we have a lot more parents who receive higher degrees from most of the prestigious universities and colleges. However, but we're lazy. We're too lazy to teach children about what's right and what's wrong. As a parent myself, and I realize one day my daughter is going to go out into the society and she's going to face a lot more tough choices. And she might hear conversations or she might engage in a conversation with her friends that she has no idea about. However, as a father, and I strongly encourage everyone to do the same thing, is have the decent conversation or find time to talk to the children regarding these social and political changes. They don't have to know really complicated or complex topics or issues, but at least they need to have the decency or even the capabilities to distinguish the right from wrong. This is Will from China. I strongly encourage you to do 2 things before you leave. Number 1, please simply click on the button below so you're able to follow our show, and whenever we have any latest episodes and you're able to click on and watch it. And second, please feel free to leave your questions and comments in the box below. I enjoy having those meaningful conversations and dialogues or even your questions. I'm looking forward to learning more from all of you just as much as we are going to enjoy or continue to discuss some of the interesting topics. And I hope in the future you're able to share more interesting and meaningful and unique content with me. Enjoy your weekend.